Hi, I'm Aiden. For the majority of my childhood, I was trapped in the endless loop known as school. I didn't decide, okay, the government did. Anyways, over the years I've gathered a lot of stories from going to school, and I figured I would compile them into one big video, seeing as you guys really don't like it when I tell them one at a time. This is gonna be a longer video, so please sit back, relax, and let me serenade you with my school stories. Let's start off with the very first story I can remember. This story takes place in pre-K. So we had just gotten back from lunch and it was time to go back to class. I think we were learning about Martin Luther King or something, but I don't remember that well because my 4-year-old brain was focused on one thing. Dang bro, the tip of that pencil is mad juicy! No matter how much I tried, I couldn't get my eyes off that succulent tip. So I did what any 4-year-old would do, and I'm not too proud of it. I slammed my head in the tip of that pencil like it was some kind of free snack. I don't know why I did it, but I was 4, and you're probably aware 4-year-olds are really stupid. I would say no offense to any 4-year-olds watching, but my content is for ages 13 and up, so get off your mom's iPad. We went to the doctor because the lead of the pencil got lodged in my head. The doctor said that he could remove it, but it'd be a lot easier and cheaper to leave it in there and let my skin grow around it. So to this day, I have a chunk of lead in my head. I'm just glad that pencils don't use actual lead, because I already have the IQ of a gerbil. If they use actual lead, I'd probably have the IQ of an ostrich, on crack. That's not the only thing that happened in my pre-K days. On the very first day of pre-K, I showed up to my first class late because I was following the crowds and I ended up in the cafeteria. And I didn't leave. Don't ask me how you can follow everyone into a room but not out. I digress. Now we move on to kindergarten. Now in kindergarten I was a bit of a troublemaker. So much so that my teacher had my mom on speed dial. Let me set the scene for you. It was a crisp, cool 2015 day. I had just gotten in trouble at school, and I can't remember what it was for, but I do remember one thing. I had received a bad note from the teacher. Now at that age, a bad note from the teacher was like a life sentence. I was already kissing my life goodbye. I knew when my mom found out what had happened, she was gonna beat me, so I thought of a solution. On the bus ride home, I decided I needed to dispose of my bad note, so I got it out of my backpack, opened the window, and threw it out. Unfortunately, the bus driver saw me and she pressed me until I came clean. Then she proceeded to rat me out to both my teacher and my mom. The sad part is, there were little pockets on the back of the seat in front of me. If I had just put it in there, my mom would have never found out and I would be a free man. That's all for kindergarten. Now moving on to first grade. I was really bad in first grade. So bad, in fact, that I was put into this program for juvenile delinquents like myself. The school didn't even have a misbehaving kids program, so they had to make one for me. One day, the school counselor pulled me and this other kid out of the class. The counselor told us that we'd be part of the school's new top-secret club called Guys and Ties. It was a club where they taught us how to look and act like civilized human beings, and then used the ties as a noose in a couple years when we found out why the club was even a thing. Knowing I was in a top-secret club, I did what any 7-year-old would do with that information. I told everyone. I ran my mouth about the club so much that my grandma will even still bring it up to this day. Thanks, Grandma. Now you might be thinking to yourself, Aiden, what despicable atrocity did you commit to end up in this program? Well, it was such a heinous, evil thing that I'm shocked I'm able to still walk a free man considering what I did. Are you ready? Brace yourself. Stop scrolling TikTok for a second. I told my friend that I was going to drop a campfire on his head. I know, such an evil thing, right? Thanks to my totally realistic threat, I got to be in a guy in a tie. Man, maybe I should threaten people more often. Now on to second grade. Now this is my last year being an absolute menace before I mellowed out in third grade. This was also the time I developed a crush on someone, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me first talk about the 2 evil things I did that year. First of all, I was considered a school threat because I drew a gun. Okay, I know saying that out of context does make me look bad, but let me explain. So my school had this program. It was either Mindset Monday or Magic Monday. Either way, every Monday we'd have a school assembly where the principal got on stage and basically begged us to be good students. She would also have little activities to do each assembly. That day our assignment was to draw a smiley face on a sticky note and give it to somebody. I thought it'd be funny if I drew a gun instead. Honestly, I still think it's kind of funny, but that's besides the point though. I drew a gun and gave it to my friend, and the teacher saw it. She made a big deal out of it, and I got suspended for like 3 days. The worst part is, we presented a project on one of the days, and I made like 10 foosball tables. I was really excited to play with all my classmates, but I couldn't because I was the school threat. I also tried to run away that year. So it was the end of the year, and I was tired of school. I was ready for it to be summer vacation as soon as possible. So I was talking with my friend, and he said, if you want school to be over that bad, why don't you just run away? And then the gears started turning. Eventually we got a crew of kids who also wanted to escape. It was like me and 3 other people. I don't want to refer to them as the other 2, so let's give them names. Meet Ian, Jackson, and Joe. So we come up with this in-depth plan of how we were going to escape. So we were planning on doing this at recess, and the way the recess field was set up, there was the playground, an upwards hill, a line of trees, and then the road. So our plan was simple. Jackson was going to kick a ball into the trees, and we'd all go up and get it. Then once we were up there, we'd cross the road and be free. I was in charge of making a map of our town so we could know where to go. However, my map was literally just some intersecting roads and some trees. We would have been screwed if we used it. So it was the day we were going to escape. We had all the plans made, but I made one fatal mistake. I had told my other friend about what we were doing. He said he was in on it until it was time to do our plan. When Jackson was kicking the ball, he went and snitched on us. So the teacher saw all of us climbing the hill and we got busted. When I was asked why I did it, I remember telling my principal that Harry Potter inspired me to do it. If you hadn't read Harry Potter, let me give you a quick breakdown. In the 7th book, Harry and his friends run away to defeat Voldemort and sleep in a tent. Yeah, that was my excuse. Now on to the embarrassing part of my 2nd grade year. My crush. I'm gonna call her Brianna. Anyway, I had a crush on this Brianna girl for a long time. I think it was from 2nd grade to 5th grade, but I was the most down bad during 2nd grade. For example, one day we were doing a Kahoot in class. I made my name, I love Brianna so much, with 2 kissing emojis. I ended up having to sit out Kahoot that day, and it was really embarrassing. It doesn't stop there though. At the end of 2nd grade, we had an awards ceremony where we got little certificates of all the good things we did. If you were wondering, I got the technology award. I guess knowing what a computer is really paid off. Anyway, I had this plan. I was gonna write this love note and give it to Brianna on stage or something. I had written the note and brought it with me to the ceremony, but I ended up forgetting it when it was time to go on stage and left it in my seat. My parents had picked it up and read it, and I thought I would never hear the end of it. I ended up taking it with me on the last day of school and putting it in her desk. I watched her pick it up, read it, and throw it in the trash. My heart was broken that day, so I went home, curled up in a ball, and played Juice WRLD on repeat. Now on to 3rd grade. This year was actually uneventful. Well, except for one thing. Yeah, this is the year of the pandemic, meaning that I had to stop my year halfway and do the other half online. You know, back then I actually liked online school, and now I hate it. One funny thing did happen this year though. I got kicked off the bus for a week. Right before COVID. Like literally, at the end of the week, I was told that I'd be off school for a week. That week turned into a month. That month turned into half a year. At least we got a free summer vacation out of it. Now we move on to 4th grade. Unfortunately, I was a good student again in 4th grade, so I don't really have anything interesting to talk about. I did join a cult though. You see, this is the year I met Gobi Gaming. He told me he had this group before COVID called Team Save the Ladybugs. Now I actually remember this club because I accidentally walked in on one of their meetings one time. So when I learned about the Ladybug cult, I suggested that we should start it back up. He agreed, and so it was made. There's a whole storyline spanning 4th and 5th grade, but if I were to talk about that, this video might be an hour long. Who knows, maybe if we get this video to like 1,000 likes, I can make a video solely on the cult. Anyway, that about sums up 4th grade. Although some interesting Aiden trivia, 4th grade was the year me and Gobi created that Oregon Trail movie. It was a school project at first, but then at the beginning of 5th grade, I told him he should upload it. The rest is history. Now on to 5th grade. There was only a couple of major events that happened in 5th grade. Most of it was a Ladybug cult. However, we did film the Great Flood. There was 2 big stories that happened in 5th grade. One of them I already told in this video, so I'll just tell the other one now. So it was April Fool's, and I wanted to prank my school. The only issue was I didn't have the time or resources to do anything interesting. So at the end of the day, when I was waiting for my bus, I decided to get a Sharpie and write on the concrete. The teachers got really mad and were trying to find out who did it for weeks. The funny part is, I never got caught. I wonder if they're still looking to the person who did it to this day. I'm not sure. Anyway, now we move on to 6th grade. Now 6th grade was rough because I was actually popular in 5th grade. But now I was no longer popular and I was in a class with none of my friends. One major story did happen though, and this time it wasn't my fault. So this took place on a Friday. I went to my first period class and it started off pretty normal. It was the day after we just finished reading a book in class. We were doing a test on it. About halfway through class, I look over and see this girl spraying perfume. I didn't think much of it because girls were always spraying perfume. So I went back to doing my test. A few minutes pass when all of a sudden my teacher starts coughing a bunch. It gets so bad that we all have to be escorted out of the classroom. What ended up happening was, my teacher had a severe perfume allergy. When I say severe, I mean lethal. She ended up leaving and we had a sub in that class for the following Monday and Tuesday. Eventually she did come back and she was fine. She ended up moving away after the school let out that year and I've never seen her again since. On to 7th grade. This year had a few highlights I already went over in separate videos. This includes the kid who threw the chair and the one who got caught with weed. There was this one time where the same kid offered me edibles. To this day, I'm still wondering if they were real or not, because he was a notorious stoner, but why would he give them away for free? Besides that, there was one big story that I think should be mentioned, but for this story, I might need a little help.
So, Aiden needs my help for this one, because I'm just so cool and awesome. So pretty much, my style of the story is based off of one person. One so evil, so disgusting, it makes me recoil at the thought of even talking about her. Her name was Gabby. Now you might be wondering, what's so bad about her? And that I can't really explain. But if you ever met her, you would know what I mean. Anyways, back to Aiden.
Yeah, so while Gobi struggled with that repulsive person, I had my own fiasco. However, my side starts off a few days before spring break. Now on this day, I was feeling good. I woke up, went to school feeling great, and I got to be in El Hoppo's class. You're the GOAT, by the way, if you're watching this. So like I said, my day was going off pretty well until I got to band class. Now I'm going to refer to this teacher as Mr. Band. Mr. Band was a pretty interesting guy. He had good days and he had bad days. On his good days, he was the chillest and funniest teacher you would ever meet. And on his bad days, he was the biggest jerk on planet Earth. And on that day, unfortunately, he was the biggest jerk on planet Earth. So I walk in, sit down, and immediately he starts lecturing us about how if we kept talking so much, then we'd end up homeless and on the streets. I have to cut him some slack because he did teach middle schoolers. If I did that, I'd be pissed 24/7 too. Anyway, he just got more and more pissed off the further we got into class. Eventually, he got fed up. Listen here, brats. My wife might be cheating on me, and as such, I'm gonna take it out on all of you. All of you are reporting to my room for lunch on Friday. I was obviously mad considering I didn't do anything. So now fast forward to that Friday. I woke up and I was in a really bad mood. I knew the only bit of time I could spend with my friends was taken from me because Mr. Bam was angry that teenagers were trolling him. Anyway, I went through my whole day and got to lunch. Now that period sucked. Gobi was in it too.
That lunch is what can only be described as pure boredom. The type of boredom that just drains all energy from you. It was mostly comprised of some silent whispers and the occasional cough. But other than that, it was pretty boring. He for some reason had all the chairs in the room taken out. I'm not sure why though. The highlight of this lunch was when this guy didn't know got in trouble. He had the iron balls to start talking to his friend quietly in the corner. And that was truly a mistake. Mr. Brand didn't even get mad. Just sent him off to never be seen again. Poor guy.
Exactly! Shout out to that kid if you're watching this. Rest in peace, little bro. So after that hour that felt like an eternity, it was time to start band class. Like Gobi said, all the chairs in the classroom were taken out, so we were assigned with getting the chairs and moving them into the classroom. I was in the middle of bringing chairs out with my big, sexy muscles. Calm down, ladies.
Aiden, you are not funny. Nobody likes you. And you will never get a girlfriend. You fat boy.
That is honestly really accurate. Anyway, in the middle of moving the chairs, I saw these shoes in the middle of the floor. I moved them out of the way because they were in the way of the chairs that needed to go. Immediately after I did that, this kid came running up to me and he was pissed. Now, normally I would stand up for myself, but this kid was different. He was a high-ranking football player who weighed like 300 pounds. Meanwhile, I was a scrawny 150-pound kid who drew for fun. I would have snapped like a twig. So after Milk Dug calmed down, I apologized and moved on. And that's where it ended. Or so I thought. So we went on spring break and everything was fine, but it was when we got back when the story really kicks off. So a few days after getting back from spring break, me and Gobi were in gym class together and...
Oh my god, that weird girl was there. Ew! Anyway, we had recently started something new, which was pretty cool. We started riding bikes for gym class. It was lots of fun. Now, back to Aiden.
Yeah, so at the end of that class, we were going back in, and the kid who got mad about his shoes was still salty. He came up to me, started pressing me again, and I didn't really know what to say, so I said the first thing that came to mind. I didn't know monkeys could wear shoes.
Aiden, that's racist!
Okay, I know that sounds racist, but that's not what I was trying to say. I meant he was acting crazy and jumping around like a monkey. He got mad and said he was gonna jump me later. I didn't think much of it because if he wanted to jump me, he would have just done it there. That was my first mistake. Well, anyway, me and Aiden didn't think much of it. What was he gonna do anyway? Eat us? But that's when things changed, when we saw him again in band class. That class was very normal. However, after the class, this random kid came up to me and started talking about, "How dare you disrespect my boy? I'm gonna beat you up, man!" Yeah, he really sounded like that. I mentioned I was scrawny, but he was way scrawnier than I was. He was built like a twig. Mixed that with his crazy hairstyle, he looked like a Q-tip. We kept arguing back and forth until eventually it all came to a head. I arrived at my class and was waiting to go in when all of a sudden, he slapped me. I don't know how to respond to that, so I just ate it and ignored him. This got him really mad, but he walked off. That's where I thought the story would end, as it couldn't get much crazier than that. I was pretty shocked, seeing as that stuff didn't really happen at our school. Luckily for him, Aiden's not a snitch. Well, things seemed to calm down after that, or so we thought. Yeah, so I got jumped. Well, let me slow down. I didn't actually get jumped. A few punches were thrown, but it wasn't like an all-out brawl. It was very intense, though. So I'm gonna go into more detail about the jumping. It was what seemed like a normal day. That was until me and Aiden split ways. I went off on my own, and so did he. It was a nice day out. It didn't seem like anything would happen that day. That was until she came up to me.
It was her, Gabby. Then she did the unexpected. She hugged me. I instantly recoiled in disgust. It was clear she was on something that day. She then grabbed me by the hand and started walking me somewhere. She wasn't really going anywhere in particular. She just seemed to be walking. I can only describe those couple of minutes as true hell on earth. That'll probably be the worst moment of my existence. Anyways, as I was going through that, I saw what looked like Aiden running. What was he running from, you might ask? The entire group of people that hated him. The thing is, those were the only people chasing him. But like a moth to a flame, more people started chasing him. And more people were starting to chase him simply because everyone else was. And that's when the whistle that dismissed us to go inside for lunch went off. He ran into the halls. And I'm not kidding when I say the entirety of 7th grade boys were chasing him. When we got to lunch, nobody cared anymore, though. It's kind of strange. Well, that's about it. Thanks for having me, Aiden.
That's about it for 7th grade. Thanks, Gobi, for making that appearance. Let's hope that the next time you feel the touch of a woman, it goes over a little better for you. Now on to 8th grade. 8th grade was interesting because it was my last year of public school. Halfway through 8th grade, my mom decided to pull me out from public school and start homeschooling me. I swear to God, if I see one comment saying, "Oh, he's homeschooled, that explains it," or something along those lines, I'm gonna crash out. Anyway, even though my 8th grade year was cut short, I do have some pretty good stories from it. First of all, you know how that story about the group chat being leaked in 5th grade? Well, it happened again in 8th grade. I know, it was stupid, but to be fair, I'm stupid. So let me give you some background information. I had this one friend, let's call him Bob. Bob rode my bus, but he was never on it because he was always doing some kind of sport. So on the rare occasion when Bob did get on the bus, it was a big deal. So one day when he did get on, I was excited. I was sitting with him and catching up about all the stuff that happened the past few weeks when I saw him pull out his iPad and start texting. I was curious, so I asked him how he was doing that. He proceeded to tell me about how the app that the school used for virtual classes back during quarantine could be used to text. I kept that in the back of my mind, but I decided not to do anything with it. Fast forward a couple days later, I'm sitting in Spanish class. I'm sitting next to Gobi Gaming, and we're doing literally everything except pay attention to the teacher. Eventually, I see that he gets a notification. Then he goes on that same app and starts texting. I see that it's starting to become a thing, so I decide to ask him about it. And he tells me that you can create group chats on there. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. I re-downloaded the app and made an account, and I was officially part of the group chat. Things were going well for the first few months, but then one day, everything had to go wrong. So apparently one of the members of a separate group chat had gotten mad at Bob for some reason. I never really asked him about it. Anyway, he decided that he was gonna snitch on us. I only know this because I had gym class with him and he randomly walked up to me and said he was snitching at lunch. Everyone in our group chat was freaking out. One girl started crying over it. Apparently this happened on her birthday, so she was traumatized. So after lunch, I was sitting in math class preparing to take all the blame. Now, I thought they were gonna call us down all at once. Turns out what they actually did was call us down one at a time. Bob was the first to go down because he was the one that the snitch had beef with. Then I didn't hear about it for a few days. However, just when I thought it was over, Gobi was sent down. They ended up removing the app from our iPads and said that if we ever got caught doing that again, we'd be suspended. So that's how it ended. Kind of anticlimactic, but I don't know what you expected. The other big thing that happened that year was the kid who threatened to shoot up the school. Let me explain. So it was a pretty normal day. We had just gotten out of band class and I was walking across the school to science class with my friends. All of a sudden, one of them tells me about somebody threatening to shoot up the school. They didn't really give me much more information, so I was pretty confused. I started asking around, and here's what I found out. So according to what everyone was saying, a kid had made an Instagram post with a gun saying how badly he wanted to shoot up our school. He said that he was going to do it that Friday, and he was going to start with the 8th grade hall. I was obviously pretty scared the whole week, and I was wondering if it was real or not. It also didn't help that pretty much everyone was coming up to me saying that they hope I was the first person to get shot. What made it even worse was the day before it was scheduled to happen, a kid got suspended for screaming, "It's happening!" in the hallways. On the day that was supposed to happen, a principal made an announcement saying that the kid had gotten arrested, and that was nothing to worry about. So there you have it, all the major stories from each year of schooling. A lot went down, and honestly, it shaped me in the person I am today. A master of bad decisions and questionable life choices, but hey, I wouldn't trade it for the world. I would share something from 9th grade, but being homeschooled has made it pretty uneventful. Thanks for listening to me ramble in this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to like and subscribe, and check out the video on the left to see how my group chat got leaked in 5th grade. Or check the box on the right to see how a kid in my agriculture class got caught with weed. Trust me, it's the craziest story I've ever been a part of. Also, one last thing before I go. We recently hit 60 subscribers on this channel. You guys have been killing it with the support, so I just want to say thank you. It takes a lot of effort to make these kinds of videos, so to see all my effort pay off is really awesome. Who knows, maybe if everybody liked and subscribed, we could beat Griffin his 5,000 dormant subscribers. Anyway, that's all from me, folks. Thanks Gobi Gaming for making an appearance in this video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.